Coming up on show 617, a high-mileage Tesla Model 3, the first Range Rover EV, and more fast chargers, this time for Scotland. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you're listening in the world. Welcome to EV News Daily. For Monday, 21st of October 2019, I'm Martyn Lee, and I go through every EV story that I can find. It's all about saving you time. A little 15-minute espresso shot of EV news every single day in your podcast inbox, if you like. Well, thank you as always to myev.com. They do help me make this show. I'm very grateful for their support, and I thank from the bottom of my heart the team at myev.com. Without them, couldn't do this. They are the first marketplace in the USA for buying and selling EVs, connecting people, buyers and sellers in a safe, secure way, because electric cars are better. Welcome to a new Patreon producer. It's always a really special moment when someone signs up on Patreon. Thank you so much, Luke. Now, Luke McCarthy is the latest name we'll add to the list, and I thank you so much. And congratulations, very quickly before the news, AVID Technology, the partner of the show, winner of the Automotive Award at the Made in the Northeast Awards, reminding me, by the way, that the award-winning AVID Technology will be back on the podcast very soon with MD Ryan Maughan. AVID make the bits which go inside EVs of all shapes and sizes. So, if you have any technical question about EVs, now is the time to send it to me. I'm now putting together the next Ask Avid show, and so what would you like to know? Anything about the way that EVs work, what's underneath the skin, powertrains, drivetrains, batteries, inverters, technology? Let me know if something's on your mind, and I'll ask your question on the next Ask Avid special. Let's get into the news then. When Tesla reports their third quarter earnings, it's going to be in 2 days' time, October 23rd, Wednesday, after the market closes. Investors will be paying close attention to Tesla's road to profitability and their ability to deliver their target of vehicles, according to TheStreet.com. In the broader picture, analysts polled by FactSet are looking for Tesla to be profitable in June 2020. Investors want to see evidence they're moving in that direction in the third quarter of 2019. So for Q3, what are we looking at? Well, analysts are expecting revenue. Here's the revenue number to look out for: $6.45 billion. And a loss per share of 46 cents, free cash flow 32 million. We'll find out in less than a couple of days' time now how they have done and matching up against expectations. That is always the downside of being a publicly traded company, of course. The good thing for us is we get to know the ins and outs of the company. The downside is every Tom, Dick and Harry that calls himself an analyst gets to weigh in on a company that's, well, you know, there's that old phrase, isn't there, that's unfair to teachers, that those that can't do teach. Yes, that is unfair, but, you know, I do sometimes wonder, those that can't do become analysts. Let's move on. And let's talk about, this is a really interesting story to kick off the podcast today, Range Rover. How are they going with an EV? There's been lots of talk about a proposed Land Rover Road Rover project following a patent filing last year. Some say that the Road Rover will be a butch wagon. Others suggest it could be a full-on luxury sedan. But the latest rumours suggest that Land Rover's Road Rover will be a fully electric, direct shot at the upcoming EVs from the likes of Porsche and Audi, says Motor1.com. Well, Autocar believes it'll be Land Rover's most road-focused model yet. It'll maintain key Land Rover qualities, like the ability to go off-road and have all-wheel drive. Company documents say it'll be a medium SUV. So medium SUV, think the upcoming Porsche Macan pure electric and the Audi e-tron or the e-tron Sportback pure electric, sitting somewhere between the Evoque and the Velar. In terms of size, at least. Land Rover hasn't confirmed the Road Rover project, but we do know that the platform will underpin its upcoming electric Land Rover and the next generation Jaguar XJ, which will be electric. The skateboard architecture is what we talk about. Newcomers to the podcast, it's where you have four wheels on each corner, and then a battery pack sits below the passengers. It looks a little bit like a big skateboard. It's why we call it that. It's the way Tesla make their cars and Polestar make their cars, and VW with the ID3, and the battery capacity of the new Range Rover, or Road Rover. Well, they're looking at battery capacities of around 90 kilowatt hours with a range of 290 miles. Jaguar Land Rover build their batteries in-house with help from BMW. Let's get on to the world's highest mileage Tesla Model 3. We think, this isn't confirmed, only Tesla would know that because, of course, Teslas send all their data back to the mothership, so somebody would know. But we think the first Tesla owner to do 100,000 miles in a Model 3 has come to light thanks to Electrek. Arthur Dreesen reserved his Model 3 on March 31st, 2016. The first day that you could do that. 2 years later, to the day, he took delivery of his Model 3 long range, says Electrek. Well, Dreesen from Los Angeles ramped his travelling up and has been recently surpassing 100,000 miles on his Model 3, becoming the first person to do so, we think, in the world. Electrek interviewed him to get an idea of his experience after that much mileage. It turns out the car has been holding up very well. Only repairs that had to be done were because he beat the car to death by his own admission. Yes, he went to the salt flats and gave it a high-speed run, which shook something with the door handle. And yes, he did drive through it was like it wasn't a lake, but it was some sort of water obstacle that meant he had to do some repairs. About $500 for 100,000 miles. That's not bad. But what about the battery? His range is now between 302 and 308 miles. That's 2.5% loss on the original 310 from when he bought the vehicle, so 100,000 miles later. You compare that to how a combustion car would do after 100,000 miles. How much money would you have spent on oil changes, on gearbox oil changes, on filters, air filters, oil filters, on other things that go wrong? He says that apart from the usual things like tyres, which, any way of moving a car around is going to take up some rubber and some tyres. Apart from that, really no major costs. Amazing. I'll pop a link to Electrek in the show notes. It's a longer read and it's well worth reading. Well, next year's Audi A6 is going to be a plug-in hybrid, and boy oh boy do they like their long names for cars. The 2020 Audi A7 Sportback 55 TFSI E-Quattro plug-in hybrid. I know, that's the one I've told you about already. Well, following the 2020 Audi A7 Sportback 55 TFSI E-Quattro is the 2020 Audi A6 TFSI E55 Quattro. I know I'm speaking fast, but if I don't, we'll be here all day. It's the A6, the plug-in hybrid. It's a very long name for a car, but this time the all-electric range will be slightly better, says Jalopnik. The A6 now joins Audi's plug-in hybrid range. The A7, the A8, Q5, Q7, the 2-litre 4-cylinder combustion engine, when combined with the motor, will produce 362 horsepower. On the A7, you'll do about 25 miles. On the A6, looking about 33 miles of pure electric range. This is a beautiful looking car. Okay, the pictures they've used are in my favourite shade of dark blue. But it's a really, it's Audi design. It's an Audi designed A6. It just appeals to me, my taste. It looks amazing. 33 miles of electric range. Crikey, if they did a pure electric version of this, well, not that I'd be able to afford to buy one, but man, that looks like a beautiful car to eat up a ton of miles. Sadly, this one's only a plug-in hybrid, but, as I always say, not everybody is ready to go full electric yet. My neighbours, here's a story that I won't tell now. My neighbours just bought a plug-in hybrid, and I've noticed that the car's always plugged in because they're doing as many electric miles as possible. I guess, and I'll have to have a chat to my neighbours, and I've not asked them yet why they went for that particular model, but with the Audi A6, with the Audi A7, with all these plug-in hybrids that are doing 20 or 30 miles of range, I predict the next car they buy, when it comes off a lease or when they sell it 2-3 years' time, that's when you go full electric, because it's just some people aren't ready to be worried about electric cars. Not everybody's you and I. Right, let's talk about Winnebago. There's a famous name, Winnebago, behind a $60 million funding round of a company called Motive. The recreational vehicle industry has grown steeply in the past decade. The RV sales have been tripling to what they were 10 years ago, with signs of the RV boom flattening now. Companies are interested in a new twist, says Byron for Green Car reports. Medium-duty truck maker Motive will use part of a $60 million cash injection from Winnebago and a private holding company in Colorado to open an engineering center in Detroit. Winnebago's interest comes from prior interactions they've had. Motive were the ones that supplied Winnebago with a chassis for both 38 and 33-foot Class A motorhome. And in 2018, Motive and Winnebago partnered to supply the chassis, the powertrain, and the body for an all-electric concept, which was used as a showcase for both zero-emissions powertrains. And it was for mobile health scanning, actually, for a mobile lung unit. Just the kind of thing that should be electric if we're making a point about health and emissions and pollution and the effect that it has on one's lungs. Great news in Winnebago investing there and putting their money where their mouth is in terms of electrification. Hey, I still haven't caught up with the podcast from over the weekend from Ryan. Tesla's chief designer, Franz von Holzhausen, recently caught up with Ryan McCaffrey on his Ride the Lightning podcast. I'm a bit behind with my podcast listening. Too busy making the damn things to listen to too many of them. However, I always get through Ryan's podcast. Not always on the Sunday when he publishes, but the one that I'm waiting to listen to does feature Tesla's chief designer. I can give you the highlights when speaking about Tesla's halo vehicle, the Roadster, the hardcore smackdown to all other cars. He mentioned that the all-electric supercar has been in a process of evolution ever since it was first unveiled. The designer added that these changes will make the production vehicle even more impressive than the prototype that came out of the back of the Tesla semi-truck 2 years ago. The initial specs that we were told of the next-gen Roadster are as follows. 0 to 60, 1.9 seconds. Top speed, 250 miles an hour plus. Range, 620 miles. Battery pack, 200 kilowatt hours. And Franz said they've been making it better and better over the last 2 years, and those specs have improved. How do you improve on those specs unless you start driving a rocket to work every single day? Wow. For those kind of YouTubers and stuff that were really pushing their like referral codes and that, there's some YouTubers out there. Actually, Ryan's one of them, I think. But there's some like the Tesla people have won their free Roadsters. Some of them have won, like I think like Bjorn Neeland has got like 2. And that's just, can you imagine like hearing that the specs of your free car just got even better? And for those that put their money down and are going to be buying them, wow. I mean, that is just the coolest thing. I cannot wait to have a ride in the passenger seat of one of those. Oh my goodness, it's going to be amazing. Let's talk about charging and Ionity, the high-powered charging network here in Europe. They're pushing ahead with their expansion. Gretna Green is a place in Scotland, and it's the first of 6 planned Ionity sites in the country. It's just been connected up to the grid, and it's now open. Construction is progressing in the rest of Europe, says Electrive. The Gretna Green site in Scotland is just behind the A74. There are 4 HPCs at that particular station. Each high-powered charger is 350 kilowatts. And Ionity is planning a total of 40 locations here in GB, each of them with 4 charging stations. Ionity is working in this country with Motor Fuel Group. They operate 900 filling stations around the country, and the high-powered chargers in Gretna Green are located on the site of one of their filling stations. Right, final story. This is one of those really sweet little stats that it ultimately doesn't mean anything, but equally is brilliant to find out. And this is one of my supporters, Frederick Rovik, sent me this link. The Model 3 could become the best-selling car in Norway ever. Hang on. The Model 3, Tesla Model 3, could become the best-selling car in Norway ever. VW's Beetle. The VW Beetle holds the current record for the most registered car in any one calendar year. Back in the 1960s, at the end of the 1960s, there were 16,706 Beetles sold in 1 year. I think it's like 68 or 69. The Tesla Model 3 is only about 2,500 sales behind the Beetle from the 60s. In October, November, December, can they sell another 2,500 Model 3s in Norway to make it the best-selling car in any 1 year of all time? Time will tell. We will put a link to the show note in the show notes to the website, which is beetle.teslastats.no. That is the brilliant, as always, Tesla Stats, which have their own Patreon if you want to go support them. Beetle.teslastats.no if you want to see the countdown ticker as it ticks down with each registered Model 3 in Norway. Hey, let's move on to question of the week right now with myev.com, and set by one of your fellow listeners, Chris. Would you buy a new EV which only has one form of charging? Like, would you buy an EV that only had AC charging, or with CHAdeMO, for instance? Anything but CCS. Would you buy an EV that doesn't have CCS charging in 2019 and going forward? Email me your thoughts. You can email me hello@evnewsdaily.com. You can leave a comment on Facebook and YouTube if you want to. With Luke, there are now 258 patrons of the podcast, edging towards 260. I'd love to read your name out next. If you want to check out what it's all about, patreon.com/evnewsdaily. Thank you to my premium partners, Phil Roberts of Electric Future, Brad Crosby, and AVID Technology. If you want to get any of the previous shows, well, there are 616 of them, I think, in the archive. The new ones come at you first and free and automatically if you are a subscriber in your favourite podcast app or on YouTube, or do both. It's all right, you can do that. And if you want to come and say hi on the socials, search EV News Daily. Have a wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there's no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.